Hi, boys and girls. Well, we are going to read another story about being friends. And sometimes it's really hard to think that you might end up being friends with somebody. Like, for example, my friend Diana and I thought that we'd never be friends. I live here on the East Coast, and she lives on the West Coast. We don't see each other very often, but guess what? We are still really good friends, even though we thought we could never really be friends because we lived so far apart. But that doesn't always have to be that way. So we're going to read a book that's called And to Think That We Thought That We'd Never Be Friends. And it's written by Mary Ann Hoberman and illustrated by Kevin Hawkes. Well, let's find out about how you can be friends with things you just didn't know you could be friends with. People you just didn't know you could be friends with. And to think that we thought that we'd never be friends. Musical instruments. Sometimes people are interested in music and others aren't. And you might think, I can't be friends with that person. They play a musical instrument. But it can happen. One day we were playing outside in the yard when my brother got mad. He pushed me so hard that I pushed him right back with all of my might. And quick as a wink, we were having a fight. Yep, it can happen. We thwacked and we whacked and we walloped away. And we may still be fighting to this very day, pinching and punching my brother and I, if only our sister had not happened by. She was sipping some soda pop out of a cup, and she said she would share if we would just make up. And since we were thirsty and tired and sore, we each took a drink and we ended our war. Yeah. You don't have to fight all the time. You can figure it out. It's funny how quickly an argument ends, and to think that we thought we'd never be friends. So sometimes you might think that fighting will stop you from being friends, but not if you stop, talk, and work it out. You can figure out a way. Listen to each other, compromise, take turns. You can be friends. That night after supper, we turned on TV, but we couldn't agree on what show we should see. I wanted one, my sister another, and both of us hated the choice for my brother. And we probably all would be arguing yet if our dad hadn't come in and turned off the TV set. So we put on our pajamas, curled up on his bed, and he read us a wonderful story instead. It's funny how quickly an argument ends, and to think that we thought that we'd never be friends. So yeah, find something you can do together. Fix that argument. What's a way you can solve the problem? Well, they solved their problem by going and reading a story. A day or two later, it wasn't much more, a great big new family moved in right next door. How many were in it, we couldn't quite tell, but they each played an instrument, not very well. One played a tuba and one a bassoon. They practiced all morning and all afternoon. They practiced all evening and all through the night, and they kept us from sleeping, and that wasn't right. So we got out of our bed with a hippity hop, and we marched off together to beg them to stop. But when we arrived there, They asked us to play, and they did it so nicely. What could we say? I took a whistle, my sister took a flute, and my brother a trumpet that gave a loud toot. My dad took a bugle, my mother a drum, and we all forgot totally why we had come. It's funny how quickly an argument ends, and to think that we thought we could never be friends. So now they're playing music all together. Then all of a sudden, we heard a loud blare. A siren came wailing from out of thin air. A police car pulled over. Out jumped the police. They told us that we were disturbing the peace. And they said if we didn't stop playing that minute, they'd take us to jail and put all of us in it. My brother got red and my sister grew pale, and everyone trembled. They didn't want to go to jail. But my mother explained that the noise we had made was because we were practicing for a parade. And she said that the siren had sounded so grand, she hoped they would ride at the head of our band. It's funny how quickly an argument ends. Now all of the police turned into our friends. We marched down the street, and each person we passed loudly complained at our ear-splitting blast. They begged us to deaden our deafening din until we invited to join them in. We offered them boxes and kettles and spoons, and once they were playing, they all changed their tunes. They all were so pleased by the music we made that they became part of our splendid parade. More and more people stepped right into place. More and more people kept up with our pace, strutting and striding and stamping their feet, marching in time to the drum's steady beat. Wow, so more and more people are joining in, becoming friends with everybody in the parade. Have you ever heard of the saying, the more the merrier? I think this is where it's going. Friends who had squabbled and even stopped talking settled their differences once they were walking, smiled at each other and marched hand in hand, keeping the beat of our wonderful band. And then we could hardly believe what we saw. Dog and cat enemies were marching paw in paw. And when our procession arrived at the zoo, lions and tigers joined in with us too. It's funny how quickly unfriendliness ends, and to think that we thought they could never be friends. Well, sometimes you get strange friendships. Ducks can be friends with dogs. Lions and tigers can be friends with each other. Even antelope and tigers can be friends with each other. It's amazing what friendship can do. Our music was magic, a magnet to all. As to a Pied Piper, they came at its call. And as we kept marching and tooting and drumming, and people kept coming and coming and coming, hundreds and thousands came running to find us. Thousands and millions fell in right behind us. What a cacophony! What a commotion! Then all of a sudden, we came to the ocean. We came to the place where the whole country ends, with hundreds and thousands and millions of friends. So now they've come to the water. Well, guess that's the end of the parade, right, guys? Can't go much further if you don't have a boat. Or, oh, what could we do now? We started to fret. We couldn't keep marching without getting wet. Then, just as we began turning around, we heard a most odd and unusual sound. It wasn't a moan, and it wasn't a cry. It wasn't a groan, and it wasn't a sigh. It was more like a humming high up the scale. A whisper, a whistle, a whimper, a wail. What do you think? A whale? No, a whale. Yes, 100 or more, and all of them swimming straight into the shore, singing their whale songs and grinning with glee. So we jumped on their backs and sailed straight out to sea. Sharks swam around us while baring their teeth. Stingrays kept rising from far underneath. But somehow the songs and the music we played convinced them to join in the ocean parade. For music is magic. It soothes and it mends. And to think that we thought we'd never be friends. I like how the baby is riding on the shark and the shark's not even trying to eat him. They recognize that we can be friends if all of us work together and be nice together. We crossed the wide ocean, washed up on the land, where people kept hearing the sound of our band. And even the ones who first came to protest soon were parading along with the rest. And it's hard to believe, but I swear it's true. By the time we were finished and finally through, and we'd all gotten back to the place we first played, the whole world was marching in one big parade. Wow, the whole world is working together. That would be amazing. And before we disbanded and each went our way, we voted to march every year on that day, to march side by side with the friends we had made and the friends we'd made up with in one big parade. And from that day to this, that is just what we do, with the police siren blaring and horns tooting too, with our pots and our pans and our trumpets and drums, and everyone comes. And this is how our cheer every year when it ends, forever and ever, we'll always be friends. So, my friends, remember that we'll all work together. We'll all be part of a great experience here at the school, and forever and ever, we'll always be friends. Even when you're out of college and you've got a job, come back and see us because we'll always be your friends.